What's your favorite scary movie?
Be like, I'm dying.
If some guy came up to me and said, "Hey, they guys, I'm like, it's over and done. We're married now."
Someone in the movie, so I'm like, kiss. But
Oh God, what a sea of humanity.
We've got. I can't even talk right now because just the thought of Nell alone.
You're my guy Inja, Cody.
Guy, even though
Miss a chickadee.
Miss a Chickadee.
Oh man.
Oh my God. Fearless, Smy, Nay Tata.
You got to start the podcast, buddy.
I know. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Hello and welcome in to 52/1994, the live movie conversation podcast where we discuss movies from the year 1994. I am your host, Cody. I'm joined by my co-host for this midweek, Ryan, or Miss Chickadee. If this is your first time joining us, welcome in. We're happy for you to join us today. Just to give you a little bit of heads up, typically we're doing 52 movies from the year 1994, but every month we have about 4 or 5 movies that didn't quite make the cut. So we want to give them their due. And this month we're talking about some movies um, under the category of they tried, like they tried something, and a couple of these really go for it. These movies that we're going to be talking about, I'll introduce those here in a second. Um, so, but Ryan, you watched all of the movies, right?
I watched all 4 of these movies. Yeah, that's correct.
I watched all 4 as well because I had to. I just had to because they were so good. The 4 movies that we're talking about are Nell. If you can't tell based on our names,
Nice speaking Nellis.
and The War, With Honors, and Bad Girls. All 4 movies. Most of them were pretty bad. A lot of them below like 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. Nell surprisingly has and that's I'm interested to talk about Nell, number 1 out of all of these. Not only because you and I have seen this movie before and have talked about this movie before, but is it a bad movie? I don't know.
It's the best movie here,
Yeah,
but it's
right.
not. It's not the best to watch. It's just the best.
Yes, I agree, and it has the best acting in it. It has the best, like, even whatever Jodie Foster's doing is great.
It's great.
She's killing it.
Yep.
One of the things I do before this, just to kind of spice things up a little bit, is I put each of these movies into Chat GPT and ask Chat GPT to give me a tagline for these movies. So I'm going to go through those real quick before we
Please
start.
do. I can't wait.
Nell. Proof that even in the wild, you can still have a serious case of forest hair.
All right.
The War. When sibling rivalry gets out of hand, Elijah Wood proves that even a kid can wage war. Just don't forget to call a truce for dinner.
Not good.
Not good.
Not appropriate for
This
that
one's
movie.
This one's my favorite one.
Okay.
Because sometimes, or this is with honors, because sometimes the best way to pass college is to make a deal with a charming homeless guy. Just don't forget to bring him a sandwich.
The closest to accurate.
Yeah, that one's good. Bad Girls, because sometimes the only thing more rebellious than breaking the law is doing it in high heels and a corset.
Sure. I think it's the movie they wanted to make. Yeah.
Yes. Like, oh man, Bad Girls pisses me off so bad.
Yeah. I got interesting background on Bad Girls.
Oh, good.
I will say of the bonus episodes, it's both it's kind of nice because this one, like, we end up having a lot of crosstalk going back and forth between movies, but all 4 of these movies are completely unique and different. Like, they're under the umbrella category of They Tried, but it's not like we're like watching 3 rich kid movies and we keep jumping back and forth. So it'd be easier to talk about them one at a time. But one thing that I think all these movies have in common is that they're bad, but they're good to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And I had seen most of I think I had seen 3 out of the 4 of these before
Oh
this
wow.
moment.
I had
Yeah,
only ever heard of Nell. I had never heard of the other three.
I remember the war vividly because of one particular scene,
Yeah.
and it has to do with my fear of drains. So this movie and the movie It, the television version of It, both had me scared to death of drains, like in a shower, in anywhere. Like I was scared to
Yeah.
death of. So that's what that has to do
That
with
makes
it.
sense.
With Honors, I remember because it just feels like such a 90s Gen X movie that my sister would have watched, like Brendan
Totally.
Fraser love, Patrick Dempsey love, like all that stuff in there, and Maura Kelly, who I loved from The Cutting Edge.
Yeah, they're from the West Wing.
Oh yeah, I forgot she's in The West Wing. Oh, she Moira Kelly. I loved her so much. And then Bad Girls, which I could understand why I didn't grow up watching that movie, but it's a Western. It should be good.
Should be.
Should be. Okay, let's start. Which one you want to start with? I'll let you pick.
Well, let's start with Bad Girls then.
Okay, good. Let me give a synopsis of this. So, prostitutes Cody, absolutely, Anita, Eileen, and Lily work a saloon in the Old West. They decide to flee the bordello for a better life elsewhere, but trouble follows close behind. They're tailed by Pinkerton detectives. Cody's savings are stolen by a bandit, and Eileen is wrongfully jailed for bank robbery. Now the remaining 3 girls must decide whether to liberate their friend or their funds first.
Right. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
That movie's so weird. It looks weird. It feels weird. It feels wrong. You know what I was consistently reminded of, like subconsciously, was Xena, Warrior Princess, which is a show I loved as a child and continue to love as an adult. But there was something made for TV about like all the sets. There was something about the lighting and the sets that like the zoomed in things where I was like, oh, this could be done on the cheap, but it almost looks movie quality, but it doesn't quite.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. It did, because I did think that this movie was a made-for-TV movie.
What it felt like.
It felt like that, and I think I just confused it with all the other made-for-TV movies that came out around this time about the Old West. I know there were ones about like Calamity Jane and
well, side note for a bonus episode, you should do a made-for-TV episode for each year.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
Because the mid 90s is like the height of made for TV movies, right?
Yes.
Like the Arachnophobias, the Lonesome Doves, like the special TV events that go over 3 or 4 nights. Like
yeah,
mid 90s is when that's at its peak.
All the Stephen King stuff came out in the 90s. That's a great idea. I love that. Man, good idea. I'll have to check that out and see what came out in 94.
Yeah.
Disney has their own like made for TV movies.
Oh, true, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So tons of stuff out there that you could pull from. But yeah, this did feel a lot like a made for TV movie. And I was kind of surprised when I started watching it and I was like, oh, it's rated R. And obviously for obvious reasons, it's rated R.
Yeah. Why is it R? I didn't know it was R. What's in there? Titties?
Yeah. Titties. And a lot of sexual assault. So much sexual assault.
Well, it was still the 90s. I mean, you could put that in and still be a justice. But yeah, the movie's so weird. It clearly like suffers from being pulled back and forth because there are moments of like good like swashbuckling Western fun, and then there are moments that are trying to be about these characters and trying to be about their relationship, but they're pulled both directions, so it doesn't really work.
And I don't love, and out of the 4, I think Madeline Stowe, who's pretty much the leader, Cody, I think she's doing the best out of all of them, in my opinion. And then honestly, I think it's Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore is doing better than she needed to be doing there.
Yeah, she's great in this.
She's kind of the thinnest character, yet she just kind of does the best acting.
Andy McDowell, who doesn't really do anything in this movie, and then all of a sudden gets a forced like love plot at the very end of this movie.
Yeah.
And then to my surprise, Mary Stuart Masterson, who I think is just like thrown away in this movie.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so I'm both have theory and facts about how this movie got made, right?
Please throw it on me.
This was originally written and was meant to be, it was written by a woman and meant to be directed by a different woman. and it was supposed to be a low budget indie film. It was supposed to be a feminist cowgirl, low budget indie film that had feminist like overtones, which sounds dope. And has been done before. I was thinking a little later on in the year we're going to do Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, and there's a lot better things going on in that than there is in this ultimately. But man, have you ever seen what's it called, Meek's Crossing, Kelly Reichardt film?
I haven't. You've told me to watch that before.
Oh, it's such a good movie. If you like westerns, but you kind of want a little art and a little feminism in your westerns, it's pretty top notch. But basically, they started filming, and then immediately, like the studio, I think they wanted Fox Searchlight to do it, and then the studio backed out shortly after filming began, and then it was on the shelf. 20th Century Fox bought it. A couple producers showed up and said they wanted to use it, and they kind of like they did a set. The day one, they got this woman director, Tamara Davis, to show up, and day one they gave her a 75-page rewrite. They came in with this saying, we'll give you way more money than you ever wanted, which of course you're like, okay, well, that sounds great. Who doesn't want that? But then with that money eventually comes ties. They give them a 75-page script rewrite. They wouldn't pay for things like weapon rehearsals and writing rehearsals. And that was already a fight before the filming started. And then like 9 days in the filming, they fired Tamara Davis. And they said it was about falling behind schedule, but there was a lot of reports that like, yeah, they really just wanted a sexy Young Guns. Like ultimately what they took this cool idea, they bought the rights to it. They used a lot of the like, this is going to be like an artistic feminist, like Western story to get the big names that they got. And then like bait and switched everybody and said, how do we make this a sexy adventure like Young Guns that'll make a lot of money? And I think what we end up getting is like half of both films, and neither are done well.
Yeah.
And I think it does explain why Bad Girls feels weird and is weird, because like it was like they start off so quick. Like they don't explain anything. And what Madeline Stowe's the main character, she Cody like just shoots a guy, and presumably her like bordello, like, you know, her whorehouse, who's like you know, assaulting one of the prostitutes, shoots him, and then immediately all four of them go on the run together. She gets captured, she's almost hanged, and then three others come and save her, and then they're just on the run, and nobody's been introduced by name yet. Like nothing's been explained about where they are. So like the crime that takes place, you're just dropped in the middle of things, and that feels like a softer indie movie introduction rather than like the big pan down into like, you know, Tombstone, you know, 1880 whatever, and like, you know, introducing the characters of little tiny scenes. So you have things like that feel weird, but they feel really cool at the beginning.
Yeah, and
that's probably the leftover thing of the indie movie, but then later on it just falls apart.
Yeah, and that plot completely goes away. Like you have the Pinkertons are in the background every once in a while, but like that's not the point of this. By the end of it, it's all about the money that gets stolen by these other bandits that Cody used to work with. Which
and then they never explain why they're so loyal to each other. There's never like them sitting around the campfire. That was one of the quotes I read, was like they watched like the first week of filming, and they just saw like a bunch of women sitting around a campfire talking, which for Ryan DeMint sounds like a dope movie. And they were like, oh fuck, this doesn't look like Sexy Young Guns, so we got to get in there. But like there's no scenes where they're like, yeah, you know, I've been sick of that industry forever. I've been sick of having to sell ourselves. I'm sick of like having to turn the other way while you, my best friend, are treated this way. You were there for me when this happened. You guys took me in. That's like hinted with one of the characters. My husband died. I had nowhere to go, and you guys took me in. There's no like a justification for why these women are on each other's side and willing to risk everything to do all this. They just immediately do it in 3 minutes, and now they're out there running away.
And she's got enough money to where they can all change their lives and run a mill.
Yes.
Right? That's the whole point.
She's been tucking away money in a different city, but she doesn't have like a bank account number or anything. And then the widow character is like, oh, by the way, I've been holding on to this land deed that my dead husband left me. And if we pair those things together, the four of us can start a sawmill and be happy. That's all in the first 10 minutes. And then like none of it really matters.
No. That's an interesting thing though. 75-page rewrite is, I mean, that's
what's that? Half a movie, 2/3?
2/3 of a movie, yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. And so that's all I could like. My theory about how that happens is somewhat like supported by what I read, but also it seems like it would be like a good study to find a film like this and be like, how does an artistic endeavor get turned into a capitalist like kind of morass, like failure or whatever? Which isn't to say I don't want Sexy Young Guns to exist. I want it to exist. They should have just supported this movie and then made Sexy Young Guns, like, you know,
Just
sexy.
give me
female
sexy.
Young Guns.
Yeah, just give
Young
me
Guns
sexy.
is already sexy, but yeah, like sexy girl Young Guns.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm okay with that movie happening, but they just like failed to make that movie and then ruin this other cool movie.
If you're gonna give me Sexy Young Guns, though, you got to give me a Lou Diamond Phillips equivalent.
Yeah, where's our LDP? Absolutely.
Because Drew Barrymore's not cutting it for my LDP.
No. Although that's what was impressive about her acting is that she was kind of like the rootin' tootin' one, which is kind of against the type for her, but she kind of pulled it off. That's what made her so impressive, I think.
Well, she's in her Bad Girls era at this point too. Like, this is the peak Drew Barrymore in the 90s. She's doing Mad Love. She's doing Poison Ivy, I think, was one of the, like, she was in her bad girl era.
Oh, see, I didn't know that she was. I didn't know what she was doing in '94, so I was very surprised to see her.
Drugs, alcohol, showing her titties to David Letterman. Like, this is that era of Drew Barrymore.
1994 when that was being bad. Yeah.
Yeah. If you show your tits to Letterman, you're the baddest girl there is, and that's where they made this movie. Yeah, it's great. I would love to see a women's Western movie, Catherine Bigelow directed. Like, that would be great. And I would have liked to have seen it with this Tamra Davis. I don't know what else she had done. I think she did a lot of like music videos and things like that, like some hip hop videos and stuff, but it doesn't look like she, trying to see, she did the Bop music video, so that's really important.
Damn, that's a banger though.
That is a banger.
Just floating in a white room.
She did Billy Madison.
Oh, let's say I know that name. I didn't look into what she did.
Billy Madison, Half Baked, The Crossroads with Britney Spears.
All right, these are hits.
Yeah, Best Men. These are, yeah. I would have, let's give her another chance.
Right. Or like, what if she was able to do, you know, Penelope Shearis, right? Like coming out of like music documentaries that were really smart and artistic in the way that she edited them, turning that career into making like the Wayne's World movies.
Yeah.
She could have done something like that with this movie.
Love Penelope Shearis. She's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what happened to Madeline Stowe. What did she like?
I don't know. I really only know the name. I didn't like recognize her immediately. I wasn't like, oh, you're from this and this and this. But
I just she was in Shortcuts last year. I bring that up with you.
Oh, maybe that's why.
Yeah. She was the wife that Tim Robbins cheated on all the time.
Rude.
And she was also like main character in Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, that's huge. 12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys. And then she just kind of, I don't remember her in anything else. I just always felt like she was cute and didn't get a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, she was in We Were Soldiers in 2002, and then she has some movie in 2003, and there's no major thing in her filmography unless she moved to television. Yeah, she's been in some TV. She was in 89 episodes of Revenge. Never heard of it.
Nope. Interesting. Maybe she just went to, I don't know. Interesting. I remember her in, I remember The General's Daughter, though.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know it.
There's a part in that movie where she, like, the general's daughter, like, straps herself down to the ground and, like, spread eagle. And it was wild. That was wild to watch in 1999 when I'm a 12-year-old boy. I'm like, what am I watching here?
I think I will join the military.
I need to go back and watch that movie and find out what the plot is, but that was a weird one. John Travolta. But
Mary Stuart Masterson the year before, you guys didn't do Benny and June in 93, did you?
We didn't.
That's a fun movie, though.
Yeah. When was Fried Green Tomatoes? 92?
91.
Oh, okay.
Which we could talk about next or soon because the directorial follow-up from the Fried Green Tomatoes is The War.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's just do that. But Fried Green Tomatoes, like that's the Mary Stuart Masterson that I thought it was going to get in this movie.
Yeah.
And because she's a badass in that movie. I forget what her character's name is in Iggy. That's her name, because she
Yeah,
turns out to
Iggy.
be the old lady at the end of that movie. She's such a badass in those. She's the one that barbecues that guy and feeds it to everybody.
Yeah, right.
So I and she, she was always like in the 80s stuff, Some Kind of Wonderful, and did some of that Brat Pack stuff. And
So I guess you can see what they're kind of doing there too, is like, yeah, you take you want that fried green tomatoes heat, because I mean that's a fascinating movie that stays very grounded, but also has a lot of female perspective, and like a female like revenge fantasy and stuff like that going on. So getting that kind of person and getting like the young Drew Barrymore to be the bad girl, like the titular bad girl, like all of that works. But man, they're not carved out singularly enough. The plot's kind of convoluted. Cool things happen, but they're not the best version. I mean, again, like Tombstone was last year. Young Guns is already out. Like this isn't touching any of that. And then their motivations are all tangled. They're halfway about like running away from each other the whole movie, and then it just comes together at the end.
This probably feels like a Western that has been done before. It's kind of funny. I watched a Western yesterday from 1958, a Gary Cooper Western called Man from the West. And a lot of that, like at a good portion of that movie, he's like living his own life, and then he somehow winds back up with his old gang that he did all this stuff with. And it feels very familiar to like when Cody hooks back up with her gang, and like the old guy's still there and he trusts her and all. It felt very much like that. So it feels like they're stealing from
that's also the plot of the pilot episode of Xena Warrior Princess.
Oh, there you go.
And but I didn't like that Madeline Stowe was like, oh, don't worry, I can handle this. I know this guy. I handled him in the past in a million ways, and I'm going to do it again. And then she just goes and gets like outplayed the whole movie. And I'm like, well, so what am I supposed to take away from this? Like my female protagonist is just getting like pushed around and assaulted and insulted and can't get anything to work out for her. I mean, as a team, they eventually do, but it doesn't feel like fun or exciting. Nobody's brave or clever. Nobody's like pulling tricks out of their sleeves. I don't know.
We didn't even talk about Dermot Mulroney in here.
That's
his
true,
little arc.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'll give it the jailbreak sequence. Was pretty good. I liked that. That felt like they were working together to like, distract and lock the guy in and then have an escape route and all that stuff. That was pretty cool.
I think I just come back to the ending. I mean, the ending shootout thing was my favorite part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think so too. And then originally it wasn't until the last second they were going to have them take their money and go their separate ways. Mm-hmm. And then I think the last second they changed it to like, no, they go and start a sawmill together. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what you told us was going to happen.
Except for one. She stays with the.
Oh yeah, well, she's found love, right?
Mm-hmm. She loves that man.
Yeah, 1 in every 4 women is a trad wife, is what that tells us. If you look around the room and you don't see one, you're it.
You're the one. So talking about Mary Stuart Masterson, we're talking about what was it? Fried Green Tomatoes. You said the next movie that they made is The War, which, let's see, did I even write anything down? I'll give you the synopsis for The War. In 1970s rural Mississippi, Vietnam veteran Stephen Simmons adjusts to life after military service. Plagued by nightmares about his wartime experiences, Stephen finds some measures of peace in his new mining job and his relationship with his wife, Lois. As Stephen works through his battle trauma, his kids, son Stu, and daughter Lydia wage a war against a group of neighborhood kids over the ownership of a tree house, which is the last like 20 minutes of the movie. So that's the synopsis there.
This movie is the quintessential of the group. Like, man, this isn't good, but I really like watching it.
I actually, and you know who doesn't always do a good job in acting wise, but I actually liked him in this movie?
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner. Yeah.
People still love Kevin Costner, and I know he's come back and done some cool stuff with Yellowstone and other things later recently. I don't hate Kevin Costner, but I don't understand why everybody loved him and loves him so much. I don't think he's a bad actor. I just don't think he's a great actor, but apparently he can be. And I like his character a lot. You got to get over everybody's accents real fast, but
yeah,
I mean, you're going to, because you're going to keep hearing them from every character in the movie. They are just from Mississippi, But yeah, Kevin Costner's pretty good. There's something about his like kind of hunched over, like he's got a calm confidence. He really sells I am tortured by war, but I've learned a lot about life, and I know what's important now.
And
Um,
even though I had seen this movie in the past, I thought the direction that I hadn't seen it in, probably close to 30 years. The direction that I thought Kevin Costner's character was going to go in, maybe that we see with a lot of people that have like PTSD, is more like violence, maybe violence towards his children or like yelling at his children, but he still maintains he's still like that loving dad and trying to be a loving husband and take care of his
I don't know.
family.
I don't know if it's a flaw or a strength. They hit you hard with the PTSD at the beginning,
Mhm.
and then they give you these number of flashbacks to war, Vietnam, right, and like throughout. But they don't hit the PTSD again at all. So that seems like a flaw, but it also feels like I almost like that, like his experiences and his disease, his illness, like affect who he is, but they don't define who he is. And he, as a person who has learned to carry burdens and has seen some things, and that does affect how he approaches things, but it doesn't keep him from ever being a necessarily great father. Like they don't show like, well, I mean, he could be a great dad all he wants, but that PTSD is going to come around and endanger the life of one of his children eventually. Like you would expect the movie to kind of do that, right? But it doesn't, and I like that. His character is really great, and the movie, the center of the movie, despite being somewhat narrated by the daughter, is between him and Elijah Wood.
Yeah. Which is it is a strange thing to have the girl, the daughter, be the narrator of a story about Elijah Wood, because that's essentially, she's like talking about her summer, her bowl full of cherries or whatever, and it's all about her brother. So she must like him somewhat.
The direction is good, and it feels like fried green tomatoes. There's lush, there's lush yellow, bright like scenery everywhere. It feels like a cartoonified version of the Old South, but also legitimate. There's like kitchen scenes with clanking pans and lots of screaming over each other, and like all of that. What John Avnet, I think is the name of the director, what he did in Fried Green Tomatoes, he's doing a good job of here too. It's the script, I think, that fails them.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting too that, and maybe this is what 1970s rural Mississippi is like. It feels like 1950s Mississippi.
It really does.
When I watch it.
That gets confusing, but then you want to justify it too. As like, yeah, man, like the 70s, it's not like modernization happened at the same rate and all over the place. And yeah, there's still, I mean, I live on the border of Mississippi now. I wouldn't have to drive far to see some towns that look a lot like that.
Yeah. I don't like, where are they even living? They're living in like
they called it Juliet, and I don't know if that's a real place. Because Joliet is, but Juliet isn't.
Juliet is not. Or
but it might be. Well, it might be, but I didn't look up to see where in the state that would be. But it feels deep south.
But it feels like they're living in like a Hooverville kind of like area at first too.
A lot of
like,
clapboard buildings.
Yeah. And
it's also weird because it seems to be like, based on how it's said, it also feels like Vietnam's still going on. He's just back, but they don't ever reference that.
Yeah, he got his Purple Heart and his Bronze Star for bravery, which I don't know what he got his Bronze Star for.
Well, was it trying to save his friend and failing?
for picking between whether or not he lives and his friend's dead body gets on.
It's not a silver star. It's not a gold star.
It's a bronze star.
That's what you get for almost saving your friend.
I mean, Forrest Gump saved his entire platoon pretty much, and
all he got was a Purple Heart, right? No, he got
Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But it felt very similar, that scene where it's like his best friend. It was his best friend. It was very much Bubba coded.
Mm-hmm. He's the biggest man I ever could call a friend.
And he left him. Bubba died by the river that day.
Yeah, he did. I did start looking at my phone every time Vietnam happened, because I was like, God, I've seen 20 Vietnam movies. There's no way this is a good version.
I think I did the same thing too. Like I was just like, this isn't important to the plot. The whole plot is Elijah Wood being a little badass, or trying to be a little badass towards these redneck kids, the bad guys who from To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, it's all their creation.
Yeah. And so I do think the movie's biggest failing is it maybe tried to do what Fried Green Tomatoes did, where there's a million little plots and they're very intricately and perfectly intertwined and developed at a really great pace, which is a tricky thing to do, but a beautiful thing when a movie does it right. And this has a million little B stories and plots and side characters and moments, but it is not paced as well. So it feels all over the place, and then things feel rushed or left behind. And then that leads to the last half an hour where you get the whole heavy-handed metaphor of the film that we're all in our own private Vietnam. Like, I don't know, like society itself is like war. And that culminates in the death. Elijah Wood sees the death of his father. And then with that rage, that coldness, he has to go have his own war where he's no longer going to do what his dad's been telling him the whole movie to, like, you know, care and empathize and don't get in the fights and don't do violence. No, he's going to go to war now. And then that war is fucking brutal.
Insane.
Yeah. The Treehouse War is wild. Kids start throwing Molotovs. Yeah, there's like napalm and everything. Vehicles on fire. There's real fist-to-fist violence. People are getting like fucking potato gunned in the face.
The tractor, like they're gonna hook up the tractor to the tree and pull it down, and then it blows up. It doesn't just catch on fire; it blows up.
Yeah, it explodes.
And nobody around town cares about any of this stuff. Like that is wild. And then it all stops because that idiot kid wants to get that lock. Yeah, he has to get that key out there and falls into the water tower that's already been established at some point in this movie.
It's Boo Radley. I mean, it's the intellectually disabled heart of an angel that brings everybody back from the brink of war.
So yeah, that scene where he gets sucked down onto the drain, traumatizing for me.
Well, you get that twice. I mean, this movie does so many things really good. Like them climbing up to the top of that rickety thing is scary and intense. You feel how big it is, how small they are, how much danger they're in. I'm like, these kids are dumb. They don't know that they'll die. Like, because you get it twice. You get it with the bet and Elijah Wood having to swim to the other side and swim back. And that's frightening. And then you get it at the end where they're all in there and that kid's just not going to make it. And I felt scared by those scenes. And I also say this, like, after his dad dies and like they like go back on the bed and then they take over the treehouse anyway. Like I felt devastated emotionally. I was like, this is not fair. This is not a fair world this kid is living in. Like he deserves a win. Like his dad was the only thing he had going, and now he's just screwed over. And like, there's no way he can win this fight. And I was definitely like empathizing with the film a lot for his position. So I mean, it does a lot of that. It gave me little like schmaltzy chills, like giving away the cotton candy. You know,
that was so good.
The fight scene in the street, like, you know, I really had all of like the cheesy feelings this movie made me want to have, but then it goes too far and it gets too messy and it doesn't end up landing the ending.
I saw an angel and he looked just like you.
It's my dog tags. Oh my God, that was Papa. It's like 5 full minutes of explaining the point of the metaphor. And I'm like, God, get me out of here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, the scene I liked the best, I think, was the auction scene because you get like the confrontation between the fathers there. I really liked that. And him that was really great. Him putting the other dad in his place, and Costner's
doing great work there, and he's just like, "Look, you can do this, you can say that, you can hit my car, you can't touch my son.
Yeah,
now you're going to apologize." It was really good, and you really believed that when that started. I was like, "There's no way they come out on top of this, or they get out safely because they're just like that guy's too mean. Kevin Costner's too like broken. Elijah Wood's just one kid versus 5 mean kids. Like." They're screwed. So they somehow wrote their way out of that situation where I'm like, yeah, man, everybody like gets their just desserts, like, you know, lessons and apologies. And I thought that was impressive.
And I love the schmaltzy line after he gives them the cotton candy. He said, looked like they'd never had anything or given to them before or whatever it was.
Yeah, it looks like it's been a while since anybody gave him anything.
Yes. God, that got me.
Great. That was really good. This movie's not bad. Again, it's bad, but it was the one I enjoyed watching the most.
Yeah, I think this one has a 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's really low.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got a lot of flaws. It could have been re-edited, reshot, maybe re-scripted a bit, and been a huge hit, I think, at the time. But it just didn't come out that way. But again, I would rewatch this before I'd rewatch Nell, which is objectively a better movie.
I wish we would have got more Mare Winningham in this.
What would the mayor do?
Mare, M-A-R-E. His mom.
Bring that up. And that's a script flaw too. Like, where's the mom in all this? And supporting her husband and like being there for the kids, being stressed out about the money. Like she comes around every now and then just to be kind of like a bit of a damsel in distress for the whole family, but not an important part of the family, which is frustrating.
I did like the daughter's friend, like her friends, even though that
Yeah.
was a little bit schmaltzy with the whole the weird subplot of like the school, which I don't
Yes.
know what time of year this is.
Again, it also feels like the night. Well, I mean, I guess they're integrated, but it's like the 1930s. It feels like.
It's I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know
what
if
time?
it's
Yeah,
summer.
it feels like summer, but
She references summer school at one point. Then
that's
she's
true.
in school. It doesn't feel like seasons change at all during this. And I know
Although
it's
in Mississippi,
Mississippi.
summer is 9 months long, so
That's true. But it always feels like it's August
yeah,
in
every
Mississippi
scene,
here.
everything is orange and hot
Yes.
and sweaty.
So there was a couple things
Wait, the
there.
corn was. You saw the cornfield. You should know what time of year would that be?
It's got
Your
to be
corn.
knee high by 4th of July, so that it's got to be green then. If it's brown, then we're in the fall. So, but the
It was
South
taller
gets.
than the kids.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're probably in September, August,
Yeah,
September. It's about time to harvest that.
yeah. Well, so also, you know what? I bet this movie was too long, and like
Oh
they cut
yeah.
out a lot of with the girl side of it because she had cool plots and was a cool character, but gets less attention than Elijah Wood and Kevin Costner. And maybe Mare Winningham got a lot cut out because of that too. Like
Yeah.
maybe she was more of a parent, but she was a parent to that half of the story. And at the end, they just tried to like edit most of that out.
I thought this girl was in a lot more. The daughter, and I was like, she's so familiar to me, so
But she
familiar.
looks like Anna Klumsky.
Yeah, a little bit like that, and just more freckles, you know.
Yeah.
And then I looked up her IMDb, and it was because of Sarah Plain and Tall
Oh
and
yeah.
Skylark. Those were made for TV movies in the 90s that we're
Yeah.
talking about here, and that's what I remember from. I remember being shown those in school. That and the Buttercream Gang were the
Buttercream Gang.
We always watched Sarah Plain and Tall and the Buttercream Gang. Those were the
You had
only
older
movies.
sisters.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I never got around to those as a kid in a house full of boys.
Classics, man. Classics. Let's move on to our. Do you have anything else for?
No.
movie?
Wait, yeah. The introduction to the dad of the junkyard family is there's like a big gunshot and it scares the girls away, and then he walks out holding a dead rat that he just shot. Then he walks around because the junkyard has like it's like a tree house. You can walk on top of the junk. And he walks around for a while and he looks around and he can't find anywhere to put the dead rat and he puts it in his pocket. And that's how you meet that guy, Mr. Lipnicki.
Lipnicki. It's Jonathan Lipnicki from
Yeah,
Jerry
that's what I'm
Maguire.
thinking
It's
of.
his dad.
Well, then there's that scene early on where he's like, "What happened to your lip, son?" And he was like, them Lipnicki boys kicked me in the face." He's like, "Yeah, they should be called Lip Kicky, right?"
That was great. What a funny line.
I was like, "That's how I would father." And my son would be like, "I'm kind of in emotional distress here, Dad." I was like, "Sorry, I just had to get a pun out real quick."
Man, I loved Elijah. We already watched North this year, but I loved Elijah Wood of the 90s. Like I thought he was gonna grow up and be like this little badass because every movie he's in, he's kind of like the coolest character in it.
Yeah.
This movie, well, he's kind of fighting the whole time, but North, he's the coolest kid. Huck Finn, the Adventures of Huck, the Disney one, he was a badass in that movie. I love.
Well, he got Frodo'd. He did.
It's
hard to come back after Frodo without being anything but Frodo.
Also, he didn't grow like past.
Yeah, that's true.
That
although actors are very short. I mean, they come around that. Yeah, every review I read, I didn't see any real praise of like Costner, but everybody who was like, "This movie sucks," Elijah Wood's really good in it. So everybody kind of agreed that he did a great job.
But what happened? So like, I mean, I guess Elijah Wood had quite a career. I keep saying like he hasn't had a good career. He's had a really good career, but like Elijah Wood versus Leonardo DiCaprio at this point, like they're kid actors. I mean, Elijah Wood's probably a little bit younger than Leo, but you see Leo kind of go on and just.
Well, I'll say this: Elijah Wood. I mean, maybe this is training, but Elijah Wood's voice gets like it's not bad as a person, but it gets like weak.
Yeah.
Like he's a little higher pitched. Like Leo can growl a lot, like, and he does a lot more with his voice. Even when I see Elijah Wood and other things, I have to like immediately go, yeah, that's what Elijah Wood's voice sounds like. And then I get over it. He's a good actor, but that might've been part of it.
I just imagine him in the smoky set of Lord of the Rings going, Sam.
Yeah, he leans into his higher voice in that movie. But
he fucking crushes it. He's awesome. Elijah Wood for life.
Yeah, he hadn't done shit since
just smokes cigarettes, man. And
he doesn't
listens to Radiohead.
I don't recognize any of it.
He just smokes and listens to Radiohead. What else you got to do? That
Yeah.
guy loves Radiohead. All right, let's talk about.
With honors.
Yeah, let's talk about with
Yeah, leave
honors.
Nell for last.
So let's with honors. Synopsis for this is: an academia meets street smarts when Monty Kessler, a graduate student struggling to finish his program, loses his thesis and finds it in the hands of a homeless man named Simon Wilder. Though the two got off on the wrong foot, they become unlikely friends, with Simon teaching Monty some important life lessons. Although Monty's roommates, including his buddy Everett Calloway, initially dislike having Simon around, they grow to appreciate him too. That's the synopsis.
Yeah, when I read the Wikipedia synopsis for these movies, I read them all real fast. I was like, oh, the war. All right, that's going to be a schmaltzy. That's going to be like a shitty Field of Dreams with like dealing with Vietnam PTSD. And I read. I was like, Bad Girls, cool premise. Even if it sucks, that'll be fun. I know about Nell, and then I read, that Brendan Fraser gets his senior thesis kidnapped by homeless Joe Pesci, and like he gets blackmailed for his senior thesis. I was like, that sounds insane. I can't wait to watch that.
It felt like Reality Bites meets. What is that?
I don't know what happened, but Fisher King is kind of came to mind.
Fisher King, I can see that. Meets Good Will Hunting. Meets Finding Forrester, which is the same kind of movie too.
What's the thing though? I'm trying to find an example of like the homeless guy has a heart of gold like trope before this movie. I'm sure it exists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's trading places a little bit, but not really. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting because this does feel like a tropey movie. Like I've seen this movie 6 or 7 times, but they've all been better than this. But I was like, I don't know which one's before '94 though, if any of them.
You also get Gore Vidal in this movie.
I love Gore Vidal. Gore Vidal, maybe a hard person to love overall, but I love him as a little anarchist freak who just like throws the wrench into everybody's bullshit. So I like him for his writing and his politics, and I loved he got a lot to do in this movie too. I thought he'd just be a character. Yeah.
He was like the villain. He was like the main villain,
and he was good at it.
But I felt like it. Yeah, it was this thing really leaned into the Reality Bites part of it. Like
I wrote Reality Bites down. Yeah, it's totally.
You have your 4 Gen Xers who are all different personality, like these amazing person. You have the girl, the feminist who's free with her body, whatever. Like
well, we're talking about like we're normalizing sex and it's safe sex, and we're not making sex happen between her and her male friends. She's having it elsewhere and compartmentalizing that part of her life. And she's very confident and chill about it all, and so are her friends. That was very Reality Bites. You have the uptight prick. You have the cool poet. You've got her, and then your main character is like a guy with a lot of potential who's on the verge of selling out.
Yes, and also kind of like rags to riches a little bit because like doesn't he come from his dad's dead, right?
Yeah,
that's part of his whole.
I didn't remember, like, it may have been mentioned, but I didn't remember him talking about coming from like a bad environment. But he definitely grew up like and has problems, daddy issues with his dad leaving him, which then becomes like revealed that Joe Pesci was a dad who left his family and now has like family problem issues with like him being that guy. The jokes aren't good enough. The points, it's naive and a little cheesy with its points, which a lot of these movies are. Like Nell is kind of too. That ends up being a downfall of Nell. But the lines are good. Joe Pesci is doing a great job. Joe Pesci, man, in the 90s needs a lot more credit.
I disagree.
You think he's bad?
I do not think he is good in this movie. I hated him in this
Really?
movie.
Okay, I thought he was great. I thought he was making bad lines fun to watch.
What did I say? I said he reminded me of Tony Clifton mixed with Robin Williams from I think that's what I said when he's like, oh boy, oh okay dokie boy, oh like
he's doing Robin Williams. You're right. It's not as good as Robin either. But like I don't know. He's got a lot. I grew up with Joe Pesci as a cartoon that got like that followed his friends, the coattails of his better friends. And then, like, slowly over time, I end up watching other movies that he's in, and I'm like, no, he's a good actor in his own right. This movie's not good.
No, it's not.
But, like, Yeah, like he wouldn't have been as good as Robin Williams and the Fisher King, but he could pull it off. I guess is what this movie made me
Yeah,
think.
I think I expected him to be more, I guess, smarter. Like I thought this would take that direction.
This is what I'm going to put forward: is that you're punishing Joe Pesci at least a little bit for the character not being as good as he should be.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I don't
he
like
should.
his story.
Yeah,
Like
what?
I don't, and that does go to the right. I don't like his backstory.
Yeah, I don't like his backstory. He's supposed to be intelligent, and he's supposed to be wise, and he doesn't get a lot of moments to like pop off. Like he has that speech with Gore Vidal, but I wanted him to like actually,
That wasn't a
like,
good speech.
huh? Exactly. It was a rhetorical speech, and I wanted him to like bring in some academic knowledge into knowledge into what he was saying
Yeah.
to make his points about what the Constitution is and what makes it great and why like his approach to that is wrong, like Gore Vidal's approach to that is wrong, by referencing things that people were surprised that he knew instead of just being a good like speech giver, I guess, like
Yeah.
appealing to emotions and like buzzwords and concepts. Yeah.
Yeah, I said Tony Clifton meets Mr. Keating. So Robin Williams from Dead Poet Society, and specifically that speech scene,
Yes.
which is also is not. I'm punishing it. You're right, but I'm also that scene of the classroom. If that's a class at Harvard, that's embarrassing. That
Why?
the class wasn't even written well to me. Like what he's trying to teach them,
Oh,
and
sure.
like
Yeah.
him, like, all right, stand up and tell me what you think. And I'm like, are these the dumbest kids in this? Like, I don't know what their majors are. Is it
Yeah.
political science?
I don't know. This
Is it-
felt like what the common man thought Harvard was like.
yeah,
Yeah, totally. It feels hard. Well, I mean, look, and they filmed it in Indiana. You know, it's what
I did.
Indiana thinks Harvard's like.
But I just felt like he gave the Gore Vidal's character gave them questions, and they weren't like hard questions. And like even Brendan Fraser's like, but I don't know what to do. I'm writing a fucking thesis on
Right. Well, there's little, again, this is like, if I saw this script, I'd be like, cool, you have your scenes, you have your beats, you have your characters, and you have this stand-in dialogue. Now go back and write good dialogue, like, because the movie could be great as is, with each scene as is, doing the things each scene's trying to do. If it was just written better, if it was funnier, if you had a few more lines that established characters, if you had a few more like interstitials that showed actual classwork being done or actual discussions, you know, like Good Will Hunting has about like the agrarian like effect on economics in the 1900s, shit like that. Like to make me believe that these are smart people or Gen X people struggling with their generation, or a homeless man who's very intelligent but has a dark secret. Like it just was, yeah, it was like first draft writing.
Yeah, it's crazy too because like the writer and director of the film is a Harvard graduate.
Oh yeah.
So you had your opportunity there, man. Also, fun fact: this is the only Joe Pesci PG-13 movie. That seems crazy to me.
Wow.
That can't be right.
He didn't do a Penguin and Happy Feet or something?
That seems like Gone Fishing has to be PG-13, right?
It's gotta be, yeah. Wait, no, Home Alone.
Yeah, then this is IMDb. You can suck up.
Maybe to that point. Or Home Alone has already
No,
happened.
Home Alone was 90, so
Yeah, that's just wrong.
oh, maybe it's the only one in there to be PG-13 and not PG or R. That's a dumb fact.
Yeah.
That's
Fair.
a dumb fact.
Yeah, that's a dumb fact.
I was like, Gone Fishing? I remember that movie. There's no way that movie's rated R.
Yeah, that'd be crazy if it was.
I don't know. I hated. Who did I hate in this movie? I didn't hate Brendan Fraser. I feel like Brendan Fraser does this like not dopey.
He's kind of blah.
Yeah, he does this like very like sullen, charming thing very well.
Yeah, the only thing I was impressed by is he does they make him do a lot of acting on crutches on ice, and he's really good at it. I mean, he's like cartooning it up, so you're like, you really know your attention's drawn to the fact that he's having a hard time getting around, but he has to do it a lot. And he's pretty good at that. Other than that, he's just kind of a nothing burger. And again, the plot where he like either changes his whole outlook on the world or deals with his family demons is just kind of like it's not really developed that much. It's not really earned.
I do like the end though. Whenever they like Monty is or not Monty. Simon is dying.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert. Simon is dying, and they like take him to his son's house, and his son's I like that Monty's like, just go over there, man. That's
Yeah.
all I need you to do. You don't have to do anything. Just go over there.
And
And
that's
that's exactly what he does. And he doesn't give him like
no.
satisfaction. He doesn't say, you're good in my book, you're forgiven or anything. He's just like, he even says that's no one to his granddaughter. Like,
Yeah, or like not even like one last look back, like, hey, take care of yourself, man. Nothing like that. I like that they didn't give him that. Because it is cheesy when you take these big issues and then you just make like one little like patch it all up moment. And then he has that mental breakdown where he's like, you're not a dog, and like, some of the dialogue was good when they were quoting things, and honestly, like there's a lot of stuff like Dead Poet Society and Good Will Hunting where they get out of like doing great writing by quoting great writing. So at the end, I think they're all reading him Walt Whitman while he's dying. And that was kind of nice. And even though it wasn't fully earned, actually his brief and kind of underwritten like note to them at the gravesite was very nice. And I kind of felt that. And Brendan Fraser finally cries.
Yeah, I was about to say Brendan Fraser like breaking down at the end of that was good. He was really Simon was really shitty to the Jeff character, Josh Hamilton's character. The uptight one who sucked. Anyway.
Yeah, he did suck. Yeah. But he comes around too. He has a little thing where he's like, can I come with you guys?
Can I come watch him die too?
What if he was just like, psych, didn't have a change of heart. I just wanted to see you when your son rejected your smelly ass. Get a job, bum.
Die. I wanted to see you get rejected by your son. Yeah. No, I hated their little hug at the end though. All four of them. That felt a little cheese to me. But
yeah, it's a little much. It's not earned. It could have been good. There's a few good lines in there. Like at the beginning, I like him at the beginning. I like the idea that he is putting forth that he's a self-sufficient person. He's almost a little bit of a Nell. Like I don't need to be saved or fixed. Like he was like, you ruined my life. Like I had 17 bathrooms and 8 miles of books, and that's all I needed. Yeah, and there's like little moments where you kind of get his like joie de vivre Patch Adams vibe, where he's like, I'm selling newspapers, and and I don't know, he's magical. He's like, I'm gonna give you one thing for one thing, is like really cheesy, but cheesy's not bad. That could work.
Maybe I just didn't feel like Joe Pesci was smart enough.
Yeah,
I love Joe Pesci because I think he's amazing. I just did not like him in this.
He can handle meaty dialogue though. They should have just given him some.
Yeah, he's good, and like I don't know if
he plays an idiot, but he plays a smart idiot, and he handles entire monologues very well as an actor,
And even though I don't like The Irishman, I think he does a wonderful job in The Irishman. And he's playing kind of against type in that movie, even though it's still about gangsters and everything. But he's quiet, he's reserved, he's like giving these long monologues, and it's very not Goodfellas for him, which is the other part of that. So, no, I love Joe Pesci. I mean, he was my childhood for Home Alone, and
I know I love him too. I mean, maybe, and he had a lot of cool things in his career. It just took me a while to maybe appreciate how good he is. Not that he's the greatest.
Yeah.
And then I think he probably had like a lot of like invitations to make a lot of money doing shtick, and why not take that? I guess Irishman was a good probably goodbye to his acting career.
Yeah.
But this movie, it's not good. I probably never watch Bad Girls again. I could see myself in like 8 years, like on a random Sunday, being like, "Oh, With Honors is on here. Yeah, let me watch that shit." I forget about it.
Let's get some Walt Whitman in my life. That's what this movie's all about. Not my favorite. What was the other thing I said? Oh, I said this is the rest of the most of this movie is you're not changing, or it's the I'm sorry, I'm struggling. The Blind Side, where it's like, that boy's changing your life. No, he's changing mine. That's what this whole thing ends up being, that trope.
Right.
And thankfully, we get Joe Pesci to die, and Brendan Fraser can.
Well, and then you create like the concept of homelessness entering a normal person's life, but you don't deal with it as homelessness because he's a magical homeless man with magical intelligence and no substance abuse problems or mental health issues other than his daddy issues, and he really just needs a family, and so it's like it throws away like a lot of the issues of dealing with it, where like a movie that's not perfect. But what's the Don Cheadle movie with Adam Sandler?
Reign Over Me.
reign over me. Like that, like you see Don Cheadle actually have to deal with this guy's like really got issues. Like, and like he's a crazy person, but there's something deeper there that needs to be unlocked. Not that that's a perfect version of like dealing with homelessness in movies, but at least is trying to deal with the difficulty of being homeless. Not just like, hey, every homeless person is either like a scammer or like just a sweet like weirdo that we can, you know, love for that. Also, his big turn goes, you know what? I will accept disability benefits.
Yeah. It's like, I never wanted to trust the government again after they did away with me. And
also, you know that I spent many years in working for Social Security disability. The fact that like the next scene, he's already got his check and it's enough for everything he needs is wild. That is not how disability works.
I've got mesothelioma.
Yeah, they don't even mention his disability.
Nope.
Yeah, what is he disabled for? Yeah, there's no way, bro.
He's got asbestos on the lungs. As best as they can tell.
Is that what he says?
No, that's what I just said.
That's what you just said. That's good. No, I remember the person who ran our agency getting called at the Capitol Hill because the senator was like, this veteran's only got one leg. What does he have to do to get disabled? And our agency director was like, lose the other leg.
Oh my God.
I don't think Joe Pesci's getting disability in this movie.
The doctor doesn't give him a diagnosis in this movie. They just say, yeah, he's got asbestos in his lungs. They don't have any. They don't have anything for that. There's no other. He's got cancer. He's got any of this stuff. Nope, just asbestos on the lungs.
It's asbestos on the lungs operation. All right, I got two quick things that are funny. There's a backstory about Mudhoney has a song in this movie, and the studio sent them. It was the first time they sent them a clip of what Mudhoney called some jock running along a track with like unbelievable behind it. And they're like, can you do something like this for us? And so according to Mudhoney, they sent him like a bitchin' instrumental track. And they came back and were like, we actually would like you to write lyrics for this song. But Mudhoney was like, we don't want to do that. And they were like, we really need you to. So Mudhoney wrote lyrics to the song they sent. And they wrote the worst lyrics they could. And they're like, there's no way they'll use it. They'll have to use instrumental versions. So the song that they did use has the lyrics in it. And it's called Run Shithead Run.
Incredible.
Because they're like, we'll never use that song. And they're like, yeah, I guess we will. And then the Mudhoney guy's like, yeah, nobody approached us for movie songs after that. The other thing is I love 1994. I love that like Brendan Fraser has a change of heart about his thesis and he wants to be more optimistic. And he's talking to like Maura Kelly about it. And they're like, oh, wow, this is so much more optimistic about the future. He's like, yeah, technology is going to create pure democracy for everybody. And like, like it's looking at that in 2024 is like technology is going to have, you know, make everything easy and everybody's going to have equal power. And then he says, she's like, yeah, that totally will work. And he goes, you're right. Interactive cable. And I don't know what the fuck interactive cable was. They already had the internet in 94. What is interactive cable?
Streaming?
Just voting for American Idol contestants on your phone?
Maybe that's what it is. I've seen some cool things on interactive cable. I've seen some cool trivia things on Netflix that are interactive.
Yeah. No, actually, you're right. It's streaming. We're doing it now. We're living Brendan Fraser's dream for pure democracy right here on Twitch.
This is true democracy at its finest. And with that, let's talk about Nell. Which is the shining star of this list of four that we've got here. With 57%, number 41 movie on the year box office wise. Nell, cut from the modern world, Nell is a wild child who has lived her entire life with her mother in an isolated mountain cabin in North Carolina. Didn't know it was North Carolina, I guess.
Didn't know that either.
I thought it was like West Virginia or something.
Well, I thought it was Appalachia, so I guess.
Yeah. When her mother dies, she's found by Kindly, Dr. Jerome Lovell, who is fascinated by Nell and the language she has developed. Lovell and the equally curious psychologist, Dr. Paula Olson, eventually camp out near Nell's cabin, slowly introducing her to the larger world than she's never known. This movie's incredible.
Incredible. What do you mean by incredible?
As in, not incredible. Problematic.
Problematic. Yeah, I don't think it's actually that problematic. I think it's just.
I think in 2024 it points out a lot of things that we wouldn't have thought about in 1994, like disability rights and misdiagnosing disabilities too is even thrown in there.
Yeah,
Um,
I do like that. I do think I think this movie is very unique. And
yes.
it's very well executed. But in 2024, at least, this movie doesn't make me think about anything I need. It doesn't tell me anything I don't already know about anything involved. It doesn't go that deep into its issues, and it's not always fun to watch. Sometimes it's a little boring. Once I'm over like the novelty of Nell existing, parts in the movie, it gets really slow.
It's
As I
very
know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, and
it's very Gorillas in the Mist. And I know
yes,
that's a really terrible way to put that, but like that's what they're doing for a half of this movie is just like watching her and
yeah.
trying to determine what she said and living amongst Nell in this world and trying to put themselves in this
And
world.
yeah, I don't know what that genre would be called, but and I don't have any good examples for it off the top of the head. But there is that type of movie that is like slow and like pregnant with emotion and feeling, and you have to be bought into the premise. I mean, it goes back a little bit to The Miracle Worker, which
Mhm.
I think has some similar things. I could even compare it a little bit to The Piano, which is a much better movie.
Oh yeah. I haven't even thought about The Piano, but that does give me piano vibes, and maybe
Yeah,
it's because I confused Holly Hunter and
Jodie
Jodie
Foster.
Foster for a long time.
There's something that makes sense, and it's very pretty environment too. I mean, there's
Mhm.
really a part of what's best about this movie is that like you see so much of Nell in her environment that the environment informs what we're supposed to think about her. Serenity, naturalness, doesn't need sophistication, has a greater sophistication by living at peace with her surroundings and stuff like that. And it gets, more at the end when she's dragged into, which just felt like the last part of ET, when she's like dragged into the hospital world and the city world, where all of a sudden, by contrast, you're supposed to see, what's wrong with her or what isn't wrong with her.
Which I think this movie bounces too much back and forth with like, oh, nothing's wrong with her, and then there is something's wrong with her.
Yeah, you know
And
what? Yeah, go ahead.
I think I, that's my problem, I think, with this movie. The biggest problem. Again, this is the best made movie out of these four. This is the best acted out of the four. And it's definitely the prettiest out of the four. It does that thing that Piano does. It's not as well done as the Piano, but like where you have this vast environment around you. We're in the hills of North Carolina. We're in the mountains of North Carolina, but we are only in this part. Like it feels
Yeah.
so, again, it's very in that spot, Gorillas in the Mist. Like we're studying this in this very like petri dish kind of thing.
Yeah. Look, I compared the environment to Nell, but you can contrast as well because in the Piano, you're really stuck in this person's isolation,
Mhm.
and you're stuck in Nell's isolation, trying to understand what's good or bad about it. You know what? And I guess I'll contradict myself a little bit. I said that this doesn't really like get into deeper issues. It makes me think about deeper issues. I just don't know. Like I did have a thought process 2/3 of the way through the movie. Like, okay, what is best for Nell? Like, is it
Yeah.
better that she stays there? Like and never learns about popcorn, never learns about music, never has sex, never travels, never just, does all these other things, has friends. Like that's a big loss for a person. But like you're also going to introduce her to so many bad things, and she's so like comfortable and like they show her to be unafraid, unashamed of her body, like, unafraid of the woods around her, only afraid of the outside world, which is the only thing that she has been shown to have hurt her. So like you're giving up something either way, and then the main characters put it upon themselves to ask themselves, like which is better. Like now it's our job to be parents. They refer to themselves as parents to Nell so many times. Yeah, and that's a hard question to answer.
I also this movie also has a weird like romance angle in it with uh Jerome and Paula. You don't see it a ton. You feel it more than anything, especially like during the like, hey, here's the sexual book scene, or
Right.
and then at the end they just have a kid. 5 years later, they're married and have a kid, which is fine. That's great that you guys bonded over Nell.
Yeah.
But that was a weird part in this. But yeah, like my biggest thing is like, okay, is she autistic? Is she not autistic? Is she fine and just undereducated?
Right. Well,
And
that reminds me. You've seen what's the movie I love, the Von Trier movie? Is it Between the Waves?
oh yeah, I think it's
Beneath
God,
the Waves?
it's something the waves with God, what is her Emily Mortimer?
No, not her. It's a Skarsgård and God, what's her name? They got back together in Chernobyl.
It is Skarsgård, Stellan Skarsgård.
So that's a movie that I think is Between the Waves. That's a movie that I deeply love and I think is really powerful and beautifully artistic.
Breaking the Waves, got it.
Breaking the Waves. You're absolutely right. That's what it is. But the whole premise of it is that this girl, like this normie adult oil worker guy, ends up having a romantic and sexual relationship with this girl who's been isolated, but is like crazy / intellectually disabled / schizophrenic. But they don't say that she is. The artistic movie shows that she is special, that she connects with things. She loves so purely. She's the only pure one in the movie, right? She has the wild, pure spirit. And that's what makes it okay that relationship happens. But if you can go along with the movie like myself and love the movie that way, if you spend one scene in that movie being like, this person is intellectually disabled, the whole thing falls apart. Like the whole thing gets real gross and messy immediately if you think that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the thing with Nell. I think that you're supposed to feel those things about her and understand that she's childish in a way, but the movie will fall apart very real if this is just a person with a low IQ, a developmental disability, severe autism. I mean, autism can be like present itself in a lot of different ways, but basically both movies, the reason I brought it up, like they have to walk the line of not saying either way very hard.
Yeah.
You have to just present it as acceptable. And that she's adult, which is sometimes hard the way she's dressed and acts. And then Jodie Foster, who's fully adult in this, but being a young, pretty woman, like it's hard to not see her even physically as much younger than the doctors. Even though you're supposed to, they make it a point to say, no, she's a full grown woman.
Yeah. It's I was talking about this movie with Alyssa. She did not watch this movie with me, but it's that Born Sexy Yesterday trope. Poor Things that Joseph mentioned in the chat is kind of that thing too. Although those movies like Breaking the Waves and Poor Things are more about a sexual awakening and sexual experience. Yeah. And I don't feel like Nell does that. Like they have that brief spot in the movie that talks about sexuality and where she goes into town and shows her takes off her dress for Jeremy Davies' character, which is something. But
and she's interested in it, and she's interested in like I mean, that's a big part of what they talk to her about. Like her big phobia is what she learned from her mother about rape and sex. And she's scared of men, hasn't been around men, and then learns to be interested in not only him, but his body in a certain way. I think it was actually kind of cool that they dealt with her adult sexuality, but I also kind of agree. I think Roger Ebert pointed out, like, they didn't really deal with it enough if they're going to deal with it at all. You should have made this a 18-year-old child rather than a fully intelligent woman who just hasn't been indoctrinated into like society in the same way or language in the same way.
So how do you feel about that scene where they get in the water? Like where he gets in the water with Nell fully naked? I
think it's one of the best and most interesting scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
Because I feel all these things and because I find it very beautiful, but very scary, like as an audience member, like, is this okay? Or like, is this going to go bad? What does this lead to? Does this lead to her like having a relationship in town that's not good for her? Or does it lead to her getting traumatized? Does it lead to her like finding joy in sex in the human form and then being around men in a certain way or whatever it ends up being? I thought it was really cool and like dangerous. If anything, to elevate the movie beyond what it deserves, it felt very like metaphorical about growing into an adult sexual human. And because they were naked in the woods in a beautiful lagoon, it felt very metaphorical about human sexuality too. So I think there's a lot of cool shit there. I like that scene. I wasn't bored during that.
Yeah, and I think that scene's good, especially comes after the scene where they're on her houseboat, I guess, that she's just camped up in there. Yeah. But she's
houseboats, yeah.
They're just watching her and she's naked out in the moonlight, swimming around, and he calls Nell beautiful. And she's like, "Oh yeah, beautiful." Like,
yeah, you're gonna fuck her, aren't you? It's basically what she says.
He's like, "I think you're beautiful," and this is part of that love schmaltzy thing in there. I think you're beautiful too, but I'm not trying to fuck you.
Right.
So it's good to have that kind of lead up to that scene with her like a supervision and him being like, "I don't want to get naked in front of you."
Yeah. No, I think it works well too. I don't know. I couldn't unpack all of it actually because there's probably a lot of things you could pull from that scene, but it might be like it's kind of the center of the movie and maybe one of the centerpieces.
I don't like the courtroom drama part of this.
No.
Because Nell just goes from being alone and acting normal to going to the city and now acting, crazy in the mental hospital, and then all of a sudden she's put in this courtroom where she has to defend herself in Nell language,
Yeah.
and does so eloquently. It's the best you can even interpret Nell.
Yeah.
And I think they do that over the movie because, like,
Well, even the things that are
we have
interpreted
learned.
are simple language, but they're way more eloquent than a fully educated adult would be in a courtroom.
Yeah.
Like,
I kind of like that. I kind of like that we, even though she is still Nell speak or whatever we want to call it, we do understand her a lot better at the end of this in that
Yeah.
courtroom scene. Like we have learned with the
You know what,
doctor
though?
about Nell.
The movie did a good job at like me not hearing any real words or feeling like not understanding her at all, and then by the end making me understand her more. I wonder how they went about writing that. I
It
mean, they
took
spent plenty of on-screen time explaining what words mean.
Yeah, I had to look it up what Lilton meant.
Yeah, what does it mean? I didn't get it.
Quiet or hush.
Quiet. Okay. Quiet.
So
it's like quiet ponies, quiet dogs, quiet seas or something. I don't know.
Lilton doggies, Lilton ponies. This movie's nuts. We just talked very like lovingly and critically about this movie, and then we just break it all down when we start.
Well, like
Nell speak.
I think I saw this whole movie when I was younger, but like before I ever saw it, I mean, I'm just telling you, like in the playground, like Nell was used with an equivalence like to like Gilbert Grape or to an intellectually disabled person. Like, I remember kids like impersonating Nell and calling people Nell, like as if they were calling them the R word, right? Like,
yeah,
that was its legacy to little kids in '94. Which now, like even as a second watching as a full-grown adult, I realized was never part of it. But that's probably a difficult thing for a kid to know the difference between watching a grown woman who, again, like with her oversized dresses, like looks and acts, childish, acting that way. Like they're only kids, an 8-year-old. They're only the thing that they can compare that to would be like intellectual disability.
Yeah. My sister, whenever I would reference it, my oldest sister Tina always does the chickadee.
Yeah.
So if I mention that I saw this movie, that's the first thing that she'll say to this.
Okay.
When I talk about it. So I like that. I like that he used the Bible to start interpreting the words that because she would say like scripture.
Yeah.
From the Bible, and that's how he used. It's kind of his little key.
That's his Rosetta Stone. Yeah.
Cipher. Yeah. To understand Nellish.
Yeah, Nellish. That's what they call it in the movie. Yeah.
Nellish. Yeah.
And it's kind of a smart little moment too. Like, I guess I could have used more of that, more of the mystery unsolving, because those scenes were always compelling. When they're like, "Oh, I get it now. Oh, I get this now." Like when they discover her phobia and where that comes from. When they discover like what certain words mean, but also like they could have made a bigger deal out of being like, "Oh, there's a Bible in her house. That's all her mom had. So if her mom read to her at all, or like it was out of this, so we can use this as a code." If there was a little bit of like little scenes interspersed between the big feelings and like the sweeping, like gushiness of it all, I think I would have not struggled as hard to pay attention.
So I got a question for you. How do you feel about the end of Nell, the 5 years later scene with Nell? Because it seems to me like she knows how to speak now. Did you catch that?
No, I was I started drinking caffeine, so I wasn't paying attention for the past 15 minutes.
But yeah, she ends up playing with the Liam Neeson and Natasha Richardson's daughter at the point, and they're singing a song together in Nellish, but then at the end of it, she says a perfectly like phrase sentence too.
So what's for dinner?
Yeah, it's like that. It's just like, oh, take care. Yeah, I can't remember what it is she says, but it was just very jarring for me. I was like, oh, we're not gonna we chose to fix her. We chose or she chose to,
Yeah, it's like you can't not show what happens to her, but like that just raises a bunch of new questions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, let me see what she's like now. Like, you're gonna show me that she talks that way and sounds that way. Like, what does she do with her time? Like, what is she like? What does she not like? How does she deal with other people and noises and television? What does she love? Like just by showing us that little bit, it would just beg more questions, because then we can fully diagnose within ourselves, like what Nell's psychology was like the whole time once we see what she could be, with that environment.
Is this the prequel to Silence of the Lambs?
Maybe. She's like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to study serial killers.
what happened to her sister? Their sister drowned.
Oh, how did she die?
Yeah,
I don't know. They have the body. I mean, they got the body, so maybe drowned, but it doesn't. Yeah, I'm not sure it ever says.
maybe she got sick.
Again, that was a cool little plot development, and I started, and like they put out little hints even from the beginning. I started to think about a sister, but I couldn't tell if it was her, and then it slowly builds up to like revealing that she had a sister, and that gave me Nell something more about her that I learned, and something about her when they explained her emotions being like continued to play with her sister that she lost. Those plot developments that made things deeper, I liked a lot. There's a lot of slow scenes of just you love Nell, right? You're gonna see more Nell, like be Nell. We all want to see more Nell be Nell.
I want
Like,
Nell
not really,
2.
bro.
Nell 2, the Nellening. No, I think my biggest complaint with this movie, obviously there are some slow scenes, but like is there anything even wrong with Nell? Because by the end of the movie it tells me that there never was.
I
But
think there never was.
I think like she's obviously got PTSD, some version of PTSD from her sister, because she sees her sister in the mental hospital and runs right into a window. Like she doesn't
Right.
have
Well, there's
windows.
nothing fundamentally wrong with Nell. I don't think there's a developmental disability or a malnutrition issue. I don't think there's anything wrong with like her fundamental thinking and like emotional processing or anything. I think it's all just nurtured environment. So even a thing like PTSD, I'm not a doctor, but like people have severe PTSD and deal with it most of their lives. But the average PTSD, like provenly, gets better with time. Whether it's mild or severe or whatever, it is a disorder that often gets better with time, especially if treated. Uh, and so like stuff like that, like, yeah, she's probably got trauma for sure. And then like she's going to experience new trauma being introduced to her new environment. But those are things that she has all the capacity in the world to understand and process and learn about. So I don't know. Like, I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with Nell is the way I read the movie.
Yeah.
But you're right that those experiences and then being shoved into an entire modern world is like, she has deficits of coping with those things, but not any fundamental inability to cope with them.
I think that also helps this movie too. Whereas, like, you can point to I Am Sam or Forrest Gump, and you could say, okay, these people have developmental disabilities. With Nell, you can't pin down anything, so it gives us free reign to be whatever. Like, let Jodie Foster do whatever she wants.
Yes, that's the point I was making earlier, and they do it with Forrest Gump too. They mentioned that he's not smart, but and yeah, he's got a low IQ. They absolutely say that, but they play him like he's not a child to be taken care of. That he's just fine. You know, the way they play those kinds of characters are real important. I mean, like also the famous quote of like never go full R word, like you know, from Tropic Thunder, and like how you don't win Oscars when you do that. You know, like when Sean Penn does that in I Am Sam, it's devastating. It's beautiful to see that kind of character on screen, but like it also it puts us off in a way. So we have to have like it's also got some noble savage or like magical inward kind of vibes going on too, where like these other people like they may not be as sophisticated as us, but man, they know some things about the world that we don't. That kind of thing.
Yeah. There's also some like weird stuff with the sheriff and his wife that doesn't really get fully developed.
And I like that stuff too.
Yeah, I like that too, and like kind of draws her out and like fixes her. Nell kind of fixes her with whatever her magical Nellishness.
Yeah, absolutely. Her pure spirit, again, her savage but pure spirit. I liked that stuff, and I also liked because that cop could have easily been a betrayer and kind of was like a stereotype in a certain way, but ultimately was quickly shown to not be that bad of a guy.
Yeah.
And I love that scene where like he blocks off the news reporters so they can get away. And then she looks alive. The look in his face is like good acting, for good face acting. When he sees how happy she is, he's like blown away and excited and mesmerized by how happy she looks. And so I'm glad they got the other scene where she meets Nell. I would have liked to see a little more of that.
Yeah, I liked I like that where because obviously you have that cop and like he shows up at one point that's like, hey, we've got a court order, blah blah, you know, got to do what I got to do. But then also with the way Nell is, is sympathetic because his wife has whatever his wife is going through, and has to deal with that on numerous occasions. They set that up a couple times,
but also choose to make that very vague, right? They don't want
Yes.
to give a name to that because they want it to be whatever justified thing we like as an audience. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, they're strategically not making choices about like people's diagnoses, which in 1994 was an easier thing to get away with, than is now. Like, nobody questioned what like Rain Man's like vibes were, even if he got a diagnosis in the movie. Like, people had never heard of the word autism before that movie.
Yeah.
Like, so it could be whatever you want. And there wasn't, a ton of people to sit around and correct and criticize it for better or worse. I don't know. I do think this movie is very anti-medicine. I think they want to give the noble savage thing. Like it doesn't. They're at cross purposes because they spend the whole movie wanting civilization to be an evil thing that Nell should be kept away from, and then they spend all this time forcing Nell to be part of it and saying that's good anyway.
Mhm.
That starts with the very first scene in the movie where Liam Neeson is treating a patient. And the daughter, as they're walking away, says, "Well, should he be in a hospital?" He's like, "Nah, stay away from hospitals unless they're paying you money." And I was like, "You're a doctor. Don't tell people not to go to hospitals. What the
Is
fuck?"
he a doctor? This is okay. This brings up another thing.
Yeah.
This is the doctor of like small town North Carolina, right?
Yeah,
Who does not doctor the rest of this movie.
doesn't doctor.
At
In
all.
fact, at some point, the woman's like, "What about your patients?" He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Will your patients be okay without you?" And he goes, "I don't know. We'll see." And then, yeah,
He just
every
lives out
single
there in a
person-
shed next to Nell in the boat lady. Like,
He was
she's
like, "I don't
getting
know."
paid to be here.
I told all my patients I was leaving town, and whatever you do, don't go to a hospital. That's what I told them. They should be fine.
Don't you dare go to hospital.
And so then, like, you have I like the way the other doctor was, he like really wanted to get his hands on Nell was played because he wasn't played for pure evil, and he makes some good points. If there was a Nell 2, which they could never do and do correctly, I would love for somebody to do the thought experiment about, like, he mentions, like, what we love about like an isolated case is that you can't force babies to go through isolation, but we don't know things about like gender constructs or understandings of money or justice or fairness when they're not like we're not being affected by all these things, or what happens to the human psychology if it grows up in an isolated way. And so, like, to see Nell, if they could write a great movie where Nell like experiences society in all parts of adulthood society and then like makes decisions based on her blank slate, that would be wild.
I just thought of Babe too, Big in the City.
Yeah. Why did she think the babe too big in the city? Because she's a pig?
Yeah,
Or
just
'cause she's in the city?
Nell 2, Nell in the City.
Yeah, Nell too, Nell in the city, and just see how she like deals with all that. Because again, like I said at the closing scene, it begs you to like, well, what do you like about life? What do you hate about it? Like, what do your dreams become when you don't know what's out there until you're 30 or something?
That's a good point. She says you remember that at the end of the movie, by the way. I just found that out. After she goes through that little stop.
You remember that?
You remember that? Yeah.
Remember when I was full R word?
No, I'm Jodie Foster. So, okay, I think we already did rank these movies, but Nell is, I think, number one for. I think we probably have the same rankings.
That was the best made movie. Yeah.
My rankings are Nell 1, The War 2, With Honors, and then Bad Girls.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But I'm not going to rewatch Nell maybe ever.
I'm glad I did though, because
Yeah.
it gave me an updated view of what Nell is from what I learned when I was 7 years old.
Exactly.
Nell on the playground.
It's a unique movie, and I think that like the idea that it wasn't fully like successful or super well received, like, but it was a meme in our like, our collective social conscious, like, points to the fact that Nell is something special,
Yeah.
as a person and a movie.
There's a great Nell reference in Parks and Recreation that Retta says when she, I can't even think of her name. Rashida Jones's character is like hitting on a man and like totally blows it, and Retta goes up to her and says, "Who are you? Are you Nell from the movie Nell?" So I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Are you Nell from the movie Nell?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I would love to be able to make those jokes and have people get them. I mean, I make jokes about like, I think that was that person's first day on Earth, or something like that. Or my partner serves tables, and she's like, I think I had a few aliens come in today because the questions they asked were wild. But we'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I think we got a Nell. I think we had a Nell situation over here.
Nell. I love that. Nell. She'll live in our hearts forever. If you want to, you can download an entire document that translates Nell into English.
Oh my God, is it in like Microsoft Word? Can I write something in Nellish?
You can definitely. There is a Nell Speak academic document out there that you can download. So
Oh damn.
So look for that, Google that. But Brian, thank you for doing these with me. I really appreciate. I love when you do these with me
I
so
love it
much.
too. It's great. Welcome.
I know we'll have a second guest next time, but for next month we're doing one that's called SNL Sucks. So this one's going to be a lot of comedies. We're going to talk about Airheads, which is kind of hard to find, but I think you can find it if you search the internet deep enough. I think it might be on archive.org if you look. Cops and Robertsons. Starring Chevy Chase, Airheads, which is another Brendan Fraser movie, but it's got Adam Sandler, Steve Buscemi in it. Clifford, starring Martin Short, which is a great movie. Exit to Eden, which is a movie that I've never seen, starring Dan Aykroyd, Rosie O'Donnell. I think it's about like bondage and BDSM stuff and cool stuff like that. And then Cabin Boy, starring Chris Elliott. So we're going to try and watch all those movies, and then we'll get back together at the end of August. I think it's August 28th will be the Wednesday that we talk about those. So if you have some time, watch those 5 movies. If you want to join us, that list is in the Discord, I believe, and we can talk about it there some more. But if you need a heads up on any of these movies, just message me on Discord and I'll let you know what the 5 movies are. So
yeah, I'll throw out there, don't sleep on YouTube. Sometimes the websites and even my television won't tell me if something's rentable on YouTube. I rented one of these on YouTube, and probably because I'm a premium member, Nell was free on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know that it was like streaming anywhere else for free, but it was just there.
Yeah, I was a little sad.
Not just like there are some movies that'll be fully uploaded, like old movies. This was like officially from YouTube, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to check that out then. Exit to Eden, I had some you might have some trouble with. That might be the worst movie we're doing this year. It's got a Rotten Tomatoes score of 5%. So
5%.
Yeah, 5%. So I'm really looking forward to that one. It's a Gary Marshall movie.
Oh yeah. Hey, Gary Marshall.
Gary Marshall.
Hey, please call me Gary.
Please call me Mr. Marshall. All right, we're going to get out of here. Thank you all so much for participating. And Ryan, thank you for doing these movies with me because I fucking love it. So you're awesome. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you next time here on 52.